Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. There's a good old adage that says that you win a war almost 2 decades or 3 decades before the war has actually been fought. That talks about building up, of course, your armed forces, the weapons, and most importantly, the soldier. Today is a very interesting discussion where we are going to talk about military education for a war that will be fought in the 21st century and beyond. For that, I have with me Lieutenant General A.B. Shivane, who has also written a book which we will introduce shortly. Firstly, sir, hello and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Aadi. Always a pleasure to be there with you.
Sir, I hope you agree with what I said that a war is won almost 2 decades before it is actually fought.
Yeah, partly because the war and warfare are changing so fast that 2 years back, war is different than what's being fought now.
Absolutely, sir.
So there is
Let's show.
continuity and there's change both, but
Absolutely, sir.
transformation and change is very rapid.
Absolutely. Let's show the viewers your book, and this is it. It's going to be coming out when, sir? Why
Uh,
don't you tell us about the book? Where did you get the thought
yeah,
and
let me
stuff
let
like
me
that? So that,
just
yes, sir.
uh, uh, I think this writing this book or researching on this subject has been a blissful journey, I would say, because for many reasons. I think first it was a passion which was driven to give back to the organization even after you've hung your spurs in some way or the other, which one has been doing. But I think this was a grand opportunity which came my way by way of uh, Center of Land Warfare Studies and the Chief of Army Staff nominating me for a chair of excellence on this particular subject and allowing me for a year to research and bring about transformation in the military education sphere of the defense forces. So that was a passion. And second was I always wondered, even in uniform, and I was times vocal about it, that we keep harping on training, whereas what we want is a very good amalgam of training, education, and experience. That is what will give you the right sort of a balance for, uh, you know, uh, preparing for future wars, particularly when uncertainty is not there. And you have a Directorate General of Military Training. You have an Army Training Command. You have appointments which have training written in that. But nowhere are we talking of education. And today, the warfare has gone from a physical domain to a cognitive domain. It's more about, fighting the adversary's will and mind than just his physical capabilities. So, with these thoughts, I dwelled upon this blissful journey, like I was mentioning, and I think it's been a wonderful. It's been very intense 1 year, no doubt. But I think the joy of it is at the end of it. I feel happy what I've been able to do because life is all about learning, unlearning, de-learning with something which is new, and then again relearning, and that's how it has essentially been. So when I just to give you an introduction, when I talk of professional military education, I think the primary role of education in the military is to enrich the training and optimize experience. And for that, you have to have military leaders with a scientific temper, a temper which is open to new ideas, creativity, encourages constructive criticism, and is attuned to the realities of changes that are taking place all around. And therefore, with the scientific temper, you have to master the art and science of war. as also contribute towards peace, because today the transition from peace to war, or the defining walls between peace and war, are so porous. So contextually, that was the professional military education there. But when I looked at the reality, when I realized there's a changing character of war, there are multiplying domains, the expanding boundaries which are increasingly getting porous, uh, and warfare is transiting beyond the battle space to society, to people, to all organs of national power. So, in short, warfare was outpacing war fighters. And therefore, the legacy professional military education, which was oriented for the last war, was actually being done for the wrong war. And therefore, there was the imperative. After I looked at this reality, the imperative was, why don't I sit down and evaluate the present professional military education effectiveness relating to its purpose in terms of outcome, what it is supposed to do. Then assess whether it is responsive to the dynamic military changes of the warfare that is evolving, present and for the future. And then empower its foundational and development domains in the pursuit of professional excellence and mission accomplishment. Therefore, the imperative was not to wash, dry, rinse as such, but the imperative was to fix the roots and bridge the gap, which required a, a transformation, not just an incremental change or incidental change, but it required a transformation of culture, structures, doctrines, methodology, and the way we train for future wars. So that became the imperative, but there was a challenge. The challenge was, how do I reshape the structures? What is the sort of shape I gave it? How do I reorient the focus? How do I rebalance the content? And how can I make it more relevant and responsive to future scenarios, especially when we all love to stay in our comfort zone? And like I always say, everyone wants to change, but no one wants to change. So, with that, uh, this book is about 247 pages. It covers the entire canvas over its 14 chapters of warfare. And I think it's not only relevant to militaries across the world, but I think it is also relevant to corporates, because I talk of AI, I talk of technology, I talk of civil military fusion, I talk of creativity, I talk of critical thinking. And I think these are now all a part of the society as is uh, warfare. And I also carried out a survey of more than 560 officers of the three services, some civilians, to get a feedback on the recommendations that I made in the end. I called the last chapter is based on a roadmap or recommendations I call A to Z of the recommendations, that 26 recommendations. And all these then I floated in a Google form to a vast majority of officers from a different service level. Because unless you have ownership, unless they agree, then it becomes just a book. My joy of writing this book is to see the transformation that it makes in the defense forces, not just another book out. And therefore, I looked upon the PME mission, or Professional Military Education mission, or let me say, a vision statement that I made for myself. The vision statement I made for myself was to develop future joint war fighters adept in the art and science of warfare, with a scientific temper, who think strategically, integrate technology, and are empowered intellectually, and can creatively apply military power as an extension of the national power to achieve combat overmatch. Extension of national power. So they need to have that understanding. And what is the condition on which they have to do? Under disruptive conditions of uncertainty and accelerated rate of change in a multi-domain operational environment. So a lot of words, but I think each has a weight to itself because combat as an instrument of warfare today must relate to war as an instrument of politics and professional military education as a means to bridge the two. So that in just is what my thoughts in the book essentially are.
Thank you for the introduction, sir. Let's just show this. These are the forwards which are written by the three service chiefs, I believe, sir. Former service chiefs,
Yeah, they are the blurbs which are written by them and the foreword by the present army chief.
current army chief. Fantastic, sir. Firstly, congratulations. When will we be able to get this of the book,
Aadi,
sir?
the pre-release sales are already started with the publisher. It will soon be in Amazon and Flipkart, but we are waiting for a firm date by the hopefully by the army chief to unfurl the book in a ceremonial manner, which should happen sometimes in the first half of May, hopefully.
Sir, let's. I'd like to ask you a little more about what you've mentioned, sir, because just the subject itself is very intriguing, and the little brief that you gave me about it has brought up a lot of things in my head. What is this concept of the 21st century warfare, sir? What does it have in itself?
Okay, Adi, let me uh, mention this something which is very, very vast, but I'll try and focus it by itself. Look, the world is changing very fast, uh, and 21st century is making it move super fast. You've seen
Hmm.
that because in every aspect, economy, trade, uh, you know, warfare, you talk of any aspect, influence, power blocks, reorientation of monetary, financial system, everything moving very fast and very differently as such. So the 20th century concept of war and peace actually has become obsolete, as has the bipolar and the unipolar world become obsolete. So therefore, the Clausewitzian meaning of war, which dominated the military thinking, that war has only one grammar, is today questioned by the experiences of the never-ending wars of the 21st century and ever elusive peace. Iraq, Afghanistan, uh, uh, Ukraine, Russia. Goes home, you see Kargil, you see what's happened on the northern borders. Has it ended? It is a peace, no peace, and a never-ending war. You never know when the sparks could go up into a flame, but it's there. So the debate of 21st century is not that war is not an option, or as philosophically being said that it's not the era of war. The reality is, how do we know we are at war? Who is participating in war? What rules are governing this war? Who's winning the war? How do we know that war has ended? We don't know this. So, in such a complex and ambiguous environment, to generate an integrated advantage, nations will have to shed their erstwhile cloak of understanding national security and matters of national defense. And they will have to build up on new ideas, evolve structures, and redefine the link between national defense, national security, and national interests. That's important at the strategic level. At the warfare level, while the nature of war is enduring, there is violence, there is blood, there is gory, the character is evolving. So the contemporary warfare wars of 21st century have witnessed a tectonic shift in the goals of war, the rules of war, the players, proxies, mercenaries, Wagners, you name it, are the instruments of war, which is reshaping its character and redefining both the art and the science of warfare. And these wars are high tempo wars with lethal military operations, with high technology weapons, both kinetic and non kinetic. Yet, yet, what was said that they will be short duration hasn't come true. So the non-kinetic, kinetic domains, the manned, unmanned paid systems are now an integrated continuum of warfare and peace fair. I call it peace fair because in peace also there is a mix of warfare there today. Cyber, space, information, trade, finance have all become
Weaponized.
inseparable parts of future conflict. They've all been weaponized. The society and audience, both domestic audience as well as international audience, as a medium, have enlarged the battle space and diminished the divide between war and peace. So
Yeah.
these conflicts, Adi, have become a kaleidoscope phenomena of information warfare played on the social media battlefield, where perception management has become the new center of gravity and narratives are the weapons to capture the psychocultural high ground. Technically, if you see, technically, if you see, digitalization, and disruption are revolutionizing the technological space. And therefore, the notion of aggressor and aggrieved, I'm not talking of notion of victory, which is again something very complex, but the notion of aggressor and aggrieved is also complex and ambiguous today, as the war in Ukraine is reforming itself. Nationalism, politics, society, proxies, and people are the new players in this battle space. And the contest of will today is as much about people as politics, as military
Oh, yeah.
leaders. So the reality is that hard power remains indispensable for deterrence and national defense to pursue national interests in a zero sum game. Thus, both military empowerment and economic growth for a nation must shape the nation's trajectory. However, the levers of this hard power and even an economy must rest on self reliance and self sufficiency, which we have seen, and we must learn this lesson because increasingly 21st century wars demand the desired war endurance, stamina, strategic autonomy, and even strategic deterrence by way of nuclear deterrence. Therefore, the national leadership, the military, the bureaucracy, the polity are all a part of the system which must function in unity and be attuned to the realities of present day or 21st century warfare. And they must function in a symphony like an orchestra if the nation has to fight and win future wars or even prevail in conflict like situation in peacetime for the for furtherance of national interests.
It's such an evolution over a simple trench battle of the First World War. So one would actually
Absolutely.
look at it, which was basically drawing lines on a map, and you don't cross this, and I don't cross that, and
Yeah.
we fight and kill each other for the next 3 years,
Yeah.
10
Sunrise
feet
to
away from
sunset.
where we started.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
from there, such a revolution that you're talking about, winning people's hearts and minds, and a whole lot of other things. I mean,
Yeah.
one thing that you brought out very clearly, that it's common citizens like myself who are also going to be not a soldier, but I think a
You're going to
warrior
be
inside.
warriors. Absolutely. You're going to be the warrior of the nation. I
Yes,
mean,
absolutely. So, one thing that which kind of I won't say amazes me, but actually, makes me sad sometimes, is the lack of strategic thought. Uh, and I'm not going to generalize it to one section of the society. It is something that you see all over the place. We take things too emotionally, as a society. I'm going to say this now because the soldiers come from that same society. It's not the officers and soldiers, everybody comes from that same society. You and I both come from the same place.
absolutely.
We have this thing of analyzing things not strategically but very emotionally. So strategic thought vis-a-vis, let's say, operations, for a soldier on the ground or a commander on the ground, versus a senior leadership in the armed forces where they're talking about geopolitics, where they're talking about strategic affairs in terms of international relations and this and that. This today has become the forefront, sir. I mean, it's you've taken the Russia Ukraine example, so I'd like to just pitch into that. It's the geopolitics of Ukraine that has kept it alive till now. The military hasn't.
Absolutely.
So how do you think this needs to be brought into the military education, sir? And how
Absolutely.
important is this?
You know, nations all over, and military in specific, look at a very pyramidal structure of strategic, operational, and tactical level.
Hmm.
And as in silos, you know, today, all these three levels are increasingly interactive and increasingly impacting each other. In a world where of digital wars, where information in warfare brings to the front situations live to the drawing room, a tactical action can have a strategic effect or a national emotional effect there. The ghost of Kiev, you've seen that. So the war today has two critical outcomes to my mind. One is winning war, and the second is winning peace. The latter remains much more challenging and difficult. And military history has demonstrated that winning battles does not ensure winning wars, and winning wars does not necessarily lead to winning the peace. And we spoke of Pakistan, Syria, Kargil, we've all seen that. So today, military victory is not necessarily synonymous with achieving the political objective for the war, for which the war was fought. We fought on a Western front to prevent or to tell Pakistan not to wage a proxy war. We thought Kargil will do that, the surgical strike, but has it stopped? You've seen what's happened recently again. We lost 5 soldiers. So these complexities which are surrounding contemporary conflict, its diplomacy and its political military objectives, I would say, thus necessitated thus necessitate a sharper focus on leaders to possess a strategic thinking as a professional trait, because this trait is today's reality when war has uh, gone beyond the battle space as such. So, like I said, all these three domains that we looked at in a hierarchical pyramid today exhibit increasing fluidity and interaction as such. You've seen in counterinsurgency of in Manipur, Nagaland, you've seen in Galwan, tactical actions having a strategic effect at the national and the geopolitical level as such. So leaders today have to deal with extremely new set of intellectual, cultural, and strategic challenges. Thus, while the tactical commander should master and live in tactical realm or tactical sphere, they must simultaneously think and understand the operational and strategic environment. Strategic thinking thus must find space at all levels. At the junior level, it must be strategic awareness. At the senior level, it must be strategic competence. Unfortunately, like you said, somewhere we lost track as a nation of this facet of strategic thinking because neither do we have a national security strategy to integrate or convey the strategic thoughts of a nation in clarity so that all organs of the nation function in harmony. Nor do we have a national defense university where everyone from all stratas of national defense sit, deliberate, discuss, evolve strategic ideas. But I'll just give you an example, which when I came across when I was studying. The Australian Defence Forces wanted a transformation in keeping with the present time. They just come up with a national defense document also. Now, when they went looked at this transformation, they gave a questionnaire to the entire army, irrespective of their rank. And they said, you give us 5 points, crisp 5 points with a sentence each. How do you look and what do you want of the army of the future? Now, look, they are encouraging strategic thinking and strategic thoughts to come up. And based on that, they mentioned that it was so valuable, they have been able to evolve something which has collective wisdom and joint ownership to see the future. That's because strategic thinking is encouraged. We used to have at one time a strategic level war game. I remember I was part of it as a youngster who sat through just seeing with my co-commander. Uh, a strategic war game held in Delhi where all ministries were present, participated in a strategic scenario. That is stopped. Why? We must look at more, uh, uh, you know, fusion and strategic thinking also. So therefore, I think this absence of a long-term envisioning and integrated planning, which is attributable to a lack of strategic culture, particularly when the threats are escalating, and we need to adapt to future thing, is something we need to look at. And the solutions actually to my mind, and I mentioned in this book also, are cultural, structural, and educational uh, uh, at the execution level. At the cultural level, the military must encourage strategic awareness and open discussions in, irrespective of rank and appointment on national security challenges, future operational environment, future threats, post transformation, changes, and reflect on creative skills for their future. Because every generation is a better generation. I'm very clear on that. And the younger ignited minds must be encouraged and harnessed to contribute to the organization through knowledge empowerment because they're the ones who are going to see it the longest. So they must also take ownership. At the structural level, somehow, while this pyramid, which I talked of, hierarchical pyramid, has now become actually a circular, a circular slab in which all three levels are interacting and are porous and uh, impact each other. Our structures continue to be very rigid and authoritarian. So therefore, everything, while it's good, army is required because part of discipline, but discipline is more about compliance than compulsions. Thus, we military will do a better job of harnessing this brain power of the youth. And at the execution level, I think what you spoke of, that professional military education must include development or operational level thinking. There must be courses that must be encouraged on strategic thinking. There are courses I know of the US Army, even the Pak Army goes to Turkey for a strategic thinking course. And there's a Hopkins School of Strategic Thinking, which is outsourced very heavily by many armies to send the students both offline and online to study this aspect of strategic thinking and developing this facet. So, in short, that we need to look at this issue, but there is something that we need to be also very conscious when we talk of strategic thinking. Between the tactical and the strategic level, there is the operation level, which is very, very important, particularly for war fighters. But this operational level, operational art and operational level thinking is again something which is suboptimal. Uh, See, the absence of understanding and the incompetence may be a strong word, but still I'll go on along with it, in practicing operational art at the expense of overdose of strategy will produce quasi diplomats rather than operation leaders. So you have to balance tactical, operational, strategic as the leader matures. But all must be present. A strategic leader must have a tactical understanding when he talks of something. A tactical leader must understand these actions could have a strategic effect. So the tall and short of it is that, in which I've touched upon also in a detailed manner in the chapter.
So it's interesting that you mention it like this because uh, I was reading somewhere, and this may sound a little weird, but just for the audience, it's a little bit of a funny anecdote which says that the difference between strategy and tactics is you use strategy to get the girl to go to the cinema with you, and tactics is what you do there at the cinema with the girl. So there's two different things, and this is a very interesting
And
quote that you actually.
operational level is how you do it so that you don't get caught.
Exactly. So these are pretty, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I read this somewhere and it just stuck with me. I think that's something that I carry with myself all the time. It may sound a little crass, but it actually conveys the message quite
yeah,
clearly.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, so today's strategic thought would also involve a huge amount of technology, and to kind of depend on the army or the armed forces to guide where the technology should come from, what technology should be there, and demand for it all the time. It's impossible. Uh, wha-
Okay.
one has to create an ecosystem, and one has
Absolutely.
to create a culture. One has to create conversations. How do you do that? I mean, how do you bring
Yeah,
in that culture within the forces?
absolutely. It's culture, it is civil military fusion, it is education to raise the technology threshold because possibly, pardon me, possibly the most disruptive changes in warfare uh, today are driven by technology and signaling the need for a military techno culture. Uh, I attended a seminar in non command end of December, I think, yeah, this January, as such, on techno leaders for the future. Now, there is awareness this time, but like I mentioned, the 4Ds that are revolutionizing the battle space today are digitization, digitalization, and disruption. So today we're talking of massing of effects and massing of influences more than the massing of forces and weapons. And in this age of digitized warfare, autonomous system, will demand military to be proficient in the fields of adapting and exploiting technology, particularly AI as a force multiplier. But at the same time, we must realize that technology or AI is a tool. It's a force which has been multiplied. So as technology is evolving and transforming warfare, we must equally invest in the warfighter to understand, adapt, exploit, and optimize this tool of the same. Without the warfare, it would, I'm afraid, it would remain a tool. So uh, today we need to do that. Why only military? Yeah? At the strategic level today, with globalization and technology bloom that is taking place, a new term, geotechnologies, has emerged, which has become a tool of strategic competition and power play. You've seen that. US, Russia, China, and the center of this contest is technology, which is a driver for economy, politics, diplomacy, and military power. So this technology revolution that you're speaking of has not only taken warfare to a different plane, but entered an era of disruption in military affairs and weaponized all elements of national power. So the challenge is that technology is changing or bringing about changes at a pace which is faster than the war fighters, and legacy structures and conformist doctrines that have been taking place, thus making military adaptation to future uh, battle space a big challenge. Technology superiority. Technology superiority manifests in outcomes when leaders are trained, educated to employ it effectively with individual proficiency, collective mastery, and adaptive skills. That is the science of warfare that the art must, impinge upon. So art and science today have to be looked at, and therefore I spoke of the term of scientific temper in future war fighters as such. So therefore, it's not so easy. It's not only education, military education. It's not only empowering them with higher technology threshold. It requires demonstrative commitment in terms of funding, joint structures, doctrinal review, HR management, induction policy review, and above all, a change in legacy mindsets. I think that is where the things will come up, and therefore there are three things that we need to do. First, prioritize technology awareness for senior leaders, because unless the hierarchy supports technology, otherwise they will say, "What is this? This doesn't make sense. You need to fight. You need to fight smart. Fighting is not good enough. You need to fight smart. And to fight smart, you have to have a very good understanding of technology integrated with war fighters. So we have to prioritize technology awareness for senior leaders so that they build support, accelerate, adopt, and catalyze the broader change. Second, we have to review HR induction policies. And this has to upskill the technology continuum of the war fighters as they go on. And like thirdly, reform the military education system so that we dovetail technology into tactical, operational, and strategic level war games and training as such. Because the need is adaptive leadership to emergent technologies, which is decision oriented, techno savvy, which is knowledge based, and optimizes joint force capability. So that's how we must look at technology.
The revolution of you know Caesar, the revolution of the game today has been technology, yes, but the use of technology for various different things. um, you can use it for surveillance, ISR, this, that. You can use it for uh, something that you mentioned in your opening remarks as involving the population of a nation, an area, or a state into the warfighting realm, if I may. And today's battles, as a matter of fact, the wars between India and China and India and Pakistan, especially India and Pakistan, are fought over Twitter. It's the perception is based on a certain narrative that gets built into uh, the people that are interested and the people specific to that region. That's a shortfall I see sometimes we in India.
True.
Uh, I'd say this example of Balakot. We won the battle, but we lost the information war, where
Absolutely.
we went and covered it after that and came to a certain level. Galwan, we kind of lost it, but then the information video campaigns that were done during Yangtze was much better. Uh, how do you make a culture of information warfare? So this is a,
Yeah.
you know, how do you think like that?
Adi, you hit the nail on the head. There are two aspects: information in warfare and information warfare. Uh,
Okay.
I'm afraid uh, we need to do a lot in both these spheres.
So
You
this is a
know,
deception itself, sir. Information in warfare and information warfare is a deception itself. I
yeah,
mean,
absolutely. So, after this Balakot strike and all, I was attending an international seminar, and there was uh, this American. After I had to speak what I had to, uh, Gaurav, and it says, so we see the transformation in the strategic response landscape of India from, strategic restraint to strategic deterrence. But deterrence has three factors. One is capability, so the second is credibility, and third is communication. All three strategic. He says you have the capability which you have demonstrated. You have demonstrated the credibility by taking strong decisions now, but I'm afraid you lack strategic communication to win the information war because uh, that somewhere has started creating ambiguities on your capabilities and your credibilities as such. I I responded, but it did get into my head that how right he was, you know, because today information warfare is in the cognitive domain, and the cognitive and the physical domain today are converging seamlessly, impacting outcomes. Uh, and both are, the only difference is IW, information warfare, targets the mind and body both in war and peace, while kinetic warfare is essentially in hostilities. And the Russia Ukraine war has once again highlighted the importance of capturing this strategic information high ground, both, like I said, information in warfare and information warfare, and its impact on domestic and global audience that is having. So today, narratives seem to be scripting history and
mhm.
swinging, narratives seem to be scripting history and swinging perceptions from reality to what is would be said as a history for the future, you know, and therefore this has both information warfare and information warfare have are both targets and weapons, which are leading to information dominance, information denial, and information disinformation attacks just taking place. And like I said, which I elaborated, the 4 Ds of technology, digitalization, disruption. Information warfare also has 4 Ds, as I read it somewhere. I'd like to state that. And the 4 Ds are: dismiss the critic, distort the fact, distract the main issue, and dismay the audience. So I thought, we have to look at
Deep.
information warfare and information in warfare. Now, while information in warfare is getting greater credibility in terms of our C5IS, our systems, our command control networking taking place. A lot has happened on that front, and that's a very positive thing. But information warfare as a tool of warfare has still not got embedded in the strategic thought or in the warfare as such. And therefore, we have to review our outdated IW doctrine of 2010. It requires information, requires manning, and it requires specialists. It requires
Yeah.
techno information warriors. It doesn't require generalists. It requires continuity. It requires a continuous peace war transition. You have to build the story over the period. And you've seen the origins of this mythical ghost of Kiev, which remains uncertain. Ukraine had profited from its popularity and propagation. We inspired a spirit of resistance in the phase that they called it "We Are the Ghosts of Kiev."
Hmm.
So it has to be integrated in our professional military education edifice. It has to be integrated on our war gaming modules and operational discussions. It can't be a standalone. It can't be given to generalists.
Yeah.
I can't go there as a general and say, okay, I did that when I was a co-commander in my war game. I got a team of officers who built up the thing and played up the information warfare, dovetailed in every aspect. But they were generalists. Today, you require professional, young, technology savvy, vibrant minds who can understand the adversary's mind, understand the gaps in the geopolitical, spheres, and play up information warfare in that manner. So
It's
it mandates a complete review of our archival structures, our cultures, our processes, and integration of cross-domain experts, like I said, in the civil arena. More is today a national effort. Information warfare is a national effort which must develop in a peacetime and transit for outcomes in a conflict situation.
absolutely, and it's not even that amazingly difficult or anything like that to do. You just have to
Yeah,
have basic understanding of how thought processes work in your target, and it's
absolutely.
easier said than done
Absolutely.
after that. So my last question to you, and I guess this is the most important one. Militaries in India, as per a culture, has been military culture. It's not. I mean, somebody. Let me rephrase that, sir. An arms seller is known as an arms dealer. And if I was an arms dealer, you'll say, यार थोड़ा दूर रहो यार इससे पता नहीं क्या है. What is this? The culture of military sales, the culture of military innovation, the culture of military development would not be there because of there's a certain dirty tag that was attached to the civilian mind. One, how do you remove that, and how do you bring in this culture of civil military integration or fusion, or whatever word that you'd like to say, because they're obviously dual use technologies. If this is a pen that can be used in civil life, it can also be used in military life. I mean, how do you get that culture into the minds and hearts and minds of people?
Yeah. Adi, this genesis of this culture lies in the immediate post-independence era when the civil bureaucracy and polity were very chary of getting the military on board in policy making, decision making, or on anything to do with national issues and strategic thinking. Uh, Possibly, they feared what is happening in Pakistan, a military coup, and
Yeah,
they
sure.
didn't want that sort of a power to develop. But they didn't realize that for the nation to realize matters military cannot be in silos. And that's why we faced what we had to in 1962. It clearly brought about a lack of civil military integration, and now which must manifest into the integration 2.0, which is civil military fusion.
Hmm.
Because civil military fusion denotes the convergence of military and civil resources, people, and systems, irrespective of being in uniform or otherwise, irrespective of the generations, irrespective of the profiles in which or the places in which they are functioning, for maximizing a nation's ability to express its comprehensive national power both during war and peace. So today, veterans has actually acquired an integrated construct of whole of nation approach and conflict, a whole of society approach. That's why we discussed that you are a warrior too today, whether in military or otherwise. But you are contributing today to the military thought by your channel. So you are a warrior. Someone is doing R&D. Someone is studying military in colleges, aspects of national defense. Someone is an entrepreneur. Someone is an industrialist. Someone is producing. They are all segments of warriors of the nation, the society, who is expressing emotions and swinging decisions. People power is the biggest power and the most powerful power that swings nation. And nationalism is something which is unparalleled. So therefore, understanding both of the military, understanding the civil, and the fusion is important because blurring of the dividing line between military and civil society has taken place, and the government has to, sorry, has to thus have a very robust civil military linkages in place, and therefore, as far as the military is concerned, the importance of military education to include non-military aspects like international relations, strategic studies, political science, area studies, organization theory. I think these are important to understand the larger canvas
Perspective.
and have an understanding of each other. And this education cannot be imparted by generalists in uniform. Therefore, today, and I'm a strong propagandist of this, integration of subject matter experts in the faculty of war colleges and army institutions on matters of national security must take place. The sprinkling of guest lectures is poodle faking. If you have a civil national security expert who's or an international relations expert or a geopolitical expert, and he's there doing a war gaming operational discussions and imbibing strategic thought and giving the larger picture, there would be a better understanding in the cognitive domains of future fighters. Eh, Therefore, civil military fusion, its realization has to take place in three areas and in two layers. The three areas are political military, political society, and military society. All three ends of a triangle which must interact, understand, and function homogeneously. All are 60 degrees each. No one is 120 and the other is
It's eco-balanced, yes,
other
sir.
less. So these are equilateral triangles which have to function and be strong. And the two layers are institutional and cultural. The institutional layer is a function of laws, procedures, organization, but more importantly, culture, which influences perceptions, attitude, builds trust into each other, influences behavior, brings about a quest to understand each other better, move out of egoistic frames to say, let me understand you and you understand me and let's work together
Together.
rather
Mm.
than, brick batting behind. So it's not only military. Let me very clearly say, and I said it in my book, and something with a Chief Marshal Arup Raha has also written in the blurb, and he was very happy about this. So I say military education has to be organized for the bureaucracy, for the civilians in MOD, and the defense industry who deal with national security, strategy, and defense capability building.
Thought
The
processes, yes, sir.
MOD and other ministries dealing with national security have, it's not their fault, have no national security educational background. They're bureaucrats, they're technocrats, there's no institutionalized mechanism. So the
Mm.
bureaucracy, the polity, and the armed forces are well trained and experienced, but hardly educated in matters of national security. Hardly educated in matters of national security. And therefore, how can fusion take place if you don't understand it? You know, so the need is for a national security professional orientation program,
Yeah.
which which should have been conducted by the National Defense University within a framework of national security strategy, but unfortunately they are missing. But so be it, because the larger focus has to be of both these, which are voids. The larger focus is to function and to fusion thoughts with commonality of goal and purpose towards furtherance of a national interest and understanding of the future trajectory of the nation and the threats and challenges and the strengths and weaknesses and the vulnerabilities that lie ahead, which need to be addressed collectively by warriors, irrespective, like I said in the beginning, of uniform, irrespective of the places their expertise or where they belong.
This last part is very intriguing to me, sir, because at the end of it, I mean, the last two questions are personally quite favorites of mine. I say this very often on my channel that narrative is my favorite word. Uh, I look at every news that comes out of anywhere as what angle of which narrative is being played across.
Yeah,
Because until and unless I know something has actually happened on the ground, I take everything for a narrative. And
absolutely.
somewhere down the line, it has actually helped me to understand a whole lot more with regards to geopolitics, and especially when you look at a country like China, which is again one of my favorite things to do. uh, you have to take it with a pinch of salt, and that's something which you've brought out very clearly. And of course, the last questions are with regards to civil military fusion. The only thing I would say is that a little bit of, I think they just, a little pinky finger of the industry was held up, and forget the stuff that is being delayed, but you can also see stuff which is coming out which is world class, in
Absolutely.
terms of guns, in
Absolutely.
terms of the UAVs and this and that and the other. And this is
Absolutely.
not
I mean,
recognized by our own selves, it's been recognized world over today. So that's something that
that
tells you something.
the potential exists. It was always
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
been tapped now, certainly, and it's a welcome change to see, how well they're contributing
yeah.
toward
Within
this.
4 years,
Yeah,
rockets are getting
uh,
shot into space, and this and that, and
absolutely. You see
it's
the
amazing.
unmanned systems.
Yeah,
It's amazing. You see the drones. I mean, you see C5 ISR system, the satellites, the space. Uh, so, like I said, potential exists. We need to tap it, and we
tap it.
need
That's all.
better understanding of each other. By nature, we love to function in silos, and by nature, we have a very bloated ego of our own silos. Now, that has to blast away, not
Yeah, yeah,
break away. It has to blast away. And we have to hold hands and say, let's move together.
absolutely. So I'd like to thank you. This was a fantastic talk, and my best wishes for this book, guys. Please do, as soon as it does come out, you can actually keep on a track on Amazon and Flipkart. Please do buy this book. It's going to be, I'm going to, because it's going to be a interesting read,
It's
talking
already
about.
available, Aadi, with Knowledge World KW publishers. They're already taking the orders with some
Oh,
discount.
fantastic. Okay,
Pre-release orders have already started, and like you said, Amazon and Flipkart are also going to soon start the pre-release orders.
fantastic, sir. My best wishes for this book, and I hope
Thank you.
what we discuss, uh, and of course what you've written in the book, reaches a larger and larger audience, and kind of we're able to bring about a certain change in thought process that we've spoken to. So as usual, it's always a pleasure talking to you after a long time, and I will disturb you again now that you're free from your book. I'm going to
Welcome.
disturb you again and again and get you back for some interesting analysis in the future. Till then, sir, Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, and thank you very much.
Thank you.